A friendship bet was broken, and in return, the girl received a tickling punishment. What happened next left everyone stunned. So this video is going to be amazing. Make sure you watch till the end. Friends Clark and Sophia had been best friends for years. Clark was a mysterious tech genius, while Sophia was an undercover agent in the New York Police Department. Sophia suspected that Clark was behind the digital thefts happening in the city, but she needed proof. One night, the two were having dinner at Clark's penthouse. To lighten the mood, Clark mentioned an old bet. He said that tonight they would play a silent challenge. The rule was that Sophia had to sit on an old wooden chair for the next 20 minutes without moving or speaking. If she moved or talked, she would have to accept any punishment Clark chose. Sophia thought this might be the perfect chance to search Clark's place if she kept him distracted. She accepted the challenge. The game began. Sophia sat like a stone statue. Suddenly, Clark leaned close to her ear and said something that shocked her. He whispered that he knew the pen in her jacket pocket was actually a recording device. Sophia was startled, and the word "what" slipped out. She moved slightly. Clark smiled and said, "You broke the bet, Sophia. Time for the punishment." Sophia thought he might call the police on her or hurt her. Instead, Clark tied a silk blindfold over her eyes and seated her on a velvet chair. He removed her shoes. Clark began tickling the soles of her feet with a peacock feather. Sophia, who considered herself a tough officer, burst into uncontrollable laughter. She laughed until tears came, but within that laughter there was a strange emotional pull. As the tickling continued, Clark slowly began to talk. He told her how the city's mayor had framed his father and that everything he was doing was just to clear his father's name. Sophia's laughter suddenly faded. She realized that through this punishment, Clark was telling her a truth she might never have believed otherwise. The tickling punishment wasn't torture, it became a flood of emotions. She understood that her best friend wasn't a criminal, but a victim fighting the system. Suddenly, the lights went out. Police sirens echoed outside. Sophia removed her blindfold and saw that Clark was gone. On the table was a note. "Sophia, the laughter you gave me tonight reminded me that I still have humanity left. But the punishment isn't over. The real punishment begins now, when you have to decide whether you're a police officer or my best friend." Looking out the window, Sophia saw Clark running toward a black helicopter. In his hand was a pen drive, the one containing all the evidence of the mayor's corruption. Sophia had her gun in hand and her friend in front of her. She could have stopped him, but she lowered her weapon. She realized that sometimes justice stands above the law. The next day, every newspaper in New York carried the headline about the mayor's resignation. Clark was nowhere to be found, but a small parcel arrived on Sophia's desk. Inside was the same peacock feather and a ticket to Switzerland. A friendship bet had been broken, a punishment had been given, but it changed two lives forever. Among the snowy mountains of Switzerland stood a small villa where the silence was broken only by the sound of the wind. As Sophia knocked on the heavy wooden door, her heartbeat quickened. The door opened, and Clark stood there with the same mysterious smile. Sophia pulled out the peacock feather from her jacket and slammed it on the table. With a mix of anger and affection, she said, "The echo of that punishment still rings in my ears, Clark. You made me a fugitive. The NYPD is after me because I let you escape." Clark calmly handed her a mug of coffee and pointed toward the falling snow outside the window. He said softly, "Sophia, I didn't make you a fugitive. I set you free. The pen drive I gave you didn't just contain evidence against the mayor. It also had documents proving your innocence. You're a hero now, not a criminal." As Sophia sipped the coffee, she heard strange thumping sounds from beneath the villa floor. Clark glanced at his watch and said, "Exactly 15 minutes left, Sophia. If you win this bet, we'll both be safe forever." The challenge was that Sophia had to decode a cipher lock hidden in the basement. But the twist was that Clark asked her to sit in a chair again. He said he would try to mentally distract her, and she would have to stay focused. This time, Clark used silk threads to tickle her. He brushed them along her hands and the back of her neck. Sophia's body trembled. She laughed, gasped, and tried to type complex codes on the laptop at the same time. It was an incredible scene. On one side, the danger of death because the cipher lock was connected to a bomb planted by the mayor's men. On the other side, Clark's strange, thrilling punishment. Through her laughter, Sophia suddenly cried out and entered the final code. The screen turned green. The bomb was defused. Sophia was drenched in sweat, breathing heavily. Clark untied her and pulled her into a hug. Tears filled her eyes. Resting her head on his chest, she said, "You're crazy, Clark, truly crazy." Clark kissed her head and said, "In New York, we were just characters, Sophia. Here, we're human. The tickling and laughter were just to distract your mind from fear. You proved you're the best agent in the world." The next morning, when the first sunlight touched the Alps, the villa was empty. The NYPD received an anonymous email listing the names of all the mayor's associates who had conspired to frame Sophia. Far away, in the streets of Italy, a boy and a girl walked hand in hand. Sophia suddenly pinched Clark's waist. He jumped. Sophia laughed and said, "Now it's my turn to give the punishment." Their laughter echoed through the old streets of Italy. The bet that broke their friendship had given birth to a love story and partnership no law or criminal could ever break. As their laughter still echoed in those sunlit Italian streets, the warmth suddenly turned ice cold. Sophia's training kicked in instantly. She noticed the tinted windows of a black SUV rolling down at the corner. Clark tightened his grip on her hand and turned into a narrow alley. Whispering, he said, "Sophia, the mayor's men have tracked us. They don't just want the evidence, they want to silence us forever." Gunshots rang out behind them. Sophia flipped a cafe table for cover. She didn't have her gun, but Clark pulled a small device from his jacket, an EMP. He pressed the button, and instantly the lights and car engines in the alley shut down. They ran into an old Roman tunnel. It was silent, but Sophia's heart pounded. Clark suddenly stopped and leaned against the wall. A red stain spread across his white shirt. Sophia cried out and held him, her voice trembling. "No, Clark, you can't leave me like this. You said we were free." Smiling through the pain, Clark touched her face. "One last bet, Sophia. If I survive today, you have to promise you'll never wear that police badge again. We'll help the people the system crushed." Footsteps echoed at the tunnel entrance. The mayor's deadliest shooter, Marcos, entered with his team. Sophia wiped her tears. The caring friend inside her turned into a fierce agent. She pulled out the same feather, but this time as a weapon. At its tip was a tiny needle containing Clark's neurotoxin. Using the darkness, Sophia moved like a shadow behind Marcos and struck. He didn't even realize what happened. As the needle pricked him, he burst into uncontrollable laughter. This was the most terrifying form of the tickling punishment. His body slowly went numb. Sophia took down the rest of the men with her martial arts skills. When everything fell silent, she helped Clark up. The wound wasn't deep. The bullet had only grazed him. Outside the tunnel, the morning sun rose. Looking into Clark's eyes, Sophia said, "Deal accepted. I'm not a cop anymore. But remember, if you ever try to punish me with tickling again, I really will arrest you." Clark laughed loudly and pulled her into his arms. Months later, from an unknown corner of the world, a new hacker group called the Feather became active. They stole from the rich and helped the poor. It's said that whenever the two leaders complete a big mission, they remind each other of their old punishment bet. A friendship bet was broken, but it created an unbreakable partnership that shook the system of the entire world. And with that, our video comes to an end. If you liked it, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.